That's, okay, get your audio.
Thank you. We'll call the February meeting of the Richland County Finance and Personnel Committee meeting to order. Was there proof of notification? Yes, there was. We were posted, Mr. Chair. Thank you. We have a 17-point agenda, and we do have one amendment. Clint?
Recommend, I made a typo on item 6A. It says 2020 year-end cash trial balance. That should be 2022 year-end cash trial balance.
Okay, we can all make that correction. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Mr. Manning, seconded by Mr. Williamson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Aye. We have an agenda. Public comment. Does anyone want to take the mic? Give us what for or commendation? No? No? This is your chance. This is something we added. Okay. The previous minutes were published. Does anyone have a correction or problem with the minutes as published? If not, I will declare them approved as published. Thank you. Reports. A, 2022 year-end cash trial balance. Mr. Langren.
Mr. Chair, in your folders that you have, your committee folder, I don't think this is online for the sake that I did not get it added to the folder just an hour ago, but in your folders, you'll see item 06A, draft preliminary cash trial balance. Please understand that this is very draft and very preliminary, but it's capturing where our cash trial balances is on our lapsing accounts outside of account 10. Now there's still transactions and balances and entries and revenues in and expenditures out and things that will still be going on until we finalize and close in March or 15th of March. But this is a preliminary type of a report that's distributed out to you folks, giving you folks essentially kind of a month to digest and questions that you might have off of a glance. In March, we plan on bringing an official kind of appropriations deficiency report to you folks with recommendations for balance transfers into these accounts, as well as a deeper explanation and some coverage on Fund 10. Kind of walking through the document looks like a spreadsheet. On the far left, you'll see the fund number, the description of the fund, the 2022 ending balance, and then the notes that go with it. Items that appear in red with parentheses around them are your deficiencies and negative numbers. If you'd like, I can take you through top to bottom. You do have to visualize some of these as like the notes saying that there is expected receivables or credits to offset different debits. So again, this is very preliminary. It's intended to kind of put there for you folks to have a month heads up on different information that you would like to further investigate or explanation, and then a more finalized version is intended for you folks at your March meeting. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Everyone ready to move on from this item?
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, can I ask?
Yes. Mr. Murphy Lopez.
Are there lapsing and non-lapsing accounts mixed in here?
These are, I believe, all non-lapsing accounts. Our lapsing account 10 is not in here in this report right now.
Wisconsin County Ambassador Program, Mr. Langrick.
In your packet and on the website, you'll see item number 6B, looking tonight for a motion to accept. Richland County Administrators participating in the Wisconsin Counties Association County Ambassador Program. This program is designed to provide member counties the opportunity to work side by side with WCA Government Affairs team to promote WCA's legislative agenda platform before the Wisconsin State Legislature and state agency officials. On January 25th, members of the program met in Madison to review the WCA legislative agenda priorities. for the 2023 and 2024 legislative session, and to engage with state representatives to educate and lobby for causes. The WCA legislative priorities for 2023-2024 in session included 1, local government funding reform, 2, increased funding for roads, GTA, and LRIP-S program, 3, increased funding for victim witness reimbursement appropriations, 4, increased funding for mental health community support programs and crisis services. The county administrator met with offices of Representative Todd Novak and Travis Tranel to discuss the priorities and talk on local concerns. Both offices were receptive to proposals, but apprehensive on funding reform until details are finalized and presented. Both offices shared concerns on where the increased shared revenues to local governments will be apportioned. The next ambassador event will be April 12th, 2023, Human Services Day at the Capitol. Meeting to be held at the Madison Concourse, again at the state capitol. The second item that you'll see in there to complement this is a copy of the initiatives that were then distributed to our legislators. And a quick walkthrough on this document, I would direct your attention to the, I'll give everybody a minute to make sure you're there again. This is 06B. The first page you'll see is what the agenda looked like. So on page 2, then you'll see the actual packet that was put together. Local government funding reform was the first one that was on our list. I'd direct your attention down to that last paragraph. You'll see in the 1980s, state funding accounted for almost 50% of county resources. Today, it accounts for 25% of county resources. This funding shift, along with states' revenue controls on counties, which are most strict in the nation, means something must give. Certainly, this kind of complements and echoes conversations that we've had now for the last plus. Flipping then to page 3, directing your attention then, what is this all about? If you go right to the requested action part of it, looking for dedicated annually an amount equal to 1 penny of the state's 5-penny sales tax to local governments, counties, cities, villages, and towns. Devote a portion of these funds to direct county payments and portion to an innovative fund that financially incentivizes county operation with other units of local government. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes of the first one. They have additional talking points and some stratified bar graphs to kind of show the changes. The next element, if you scroll down to page 5 in your packet, you'll see a copy of the next one with the general transportation. They give a summary on the GTA funds and the LRIP-S programs. The main asks for these arrive on page 6 of 15 in the middle. You'll see the 2 requested actions. For GTA, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Counties Highway Association request additional funding be allocated to the GTA apportionment for the backlog of maintenance in county trunk highway systems. And then you'll see requested action LRIP-S. With a $5 billion surplus, the Wisconsin Counties Association requests $2 million be appropriated for the LRIS-EP program. And this is from the current status, you'll see above, of the 100 million that was allocated to it previously. The next program, or the next initiative, I should say, you'll see on page 8 of 15 beginning with the victim reimbursement apportionments. Kind of the bottom on this one is that when the program was set up, it was intended to be covered at 90% by the state. So you'll see on the paragraph on 9 of 15, middle, the state is not reimbursing up to its full potential. The state is supposed to reimburse counties up to 90% of the costs incurred at these services. In the financial year 2020 run reimbursement was just 40.3%, and historic low for the program. So the requested action on the bottom of this one is to support $12 million in general revenues for victim witness appropriation, or the equivalent of 90% reimbursement to counties. Then the final initiative on mental health community support program and crisis begins on your page 11 and 15 if you're in your folder. This one talks on the nice history on the background of the 2 programs. It talks on MA reimbursements that come down to us from the state and federal level. The main ask for this program, for this initiative, the request language is found on page 13 of 15, where we're asking for, again, GPR to provide $21 million annually to fund crisis services statewide and eliminate the MOE requirements for Medicaid reimbursements and services. and then GPR to provide 14 million annually to cover the current county share of CSP Medicaid expenditures statewide. And then they do have a nifty display on here. Let me see if I can get it to view, rotate. I have a graphic on here trying to show them the apportionment, and I'm sure Tricia probably understands this more than I do, but it's showing $81 million of total county spending on crisis services. 21 million of that is county spending that's non-MA eligible, compared to 60 million that county spending qualifying for MA reimbursement. Now taking that 60 million of MA reimbursement, 36 million is federal MA reimbursement and 24 is non-federal share of MA spending, which means that of that 24, still 21 million is covered by county share MOE versus the 3 million of state share, which essentially leaves counties with the added total combined of that 21 million on row 2 with the 21 million on the bottom. So that's where the ask is to try to help close those gaps up. So that is the report, and those are the initiatives that are being promoted as priorities of Wisconsin Counties Associations, in which lobbyists on our behalf and members that were there that day went to our local assemblymen and state senators to help promote. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Langrick. I have a question. You covered a lot of ground there, and I'm glad to see you're involved so totally in this. The Ambassadors Program probably offers some help for us, a glimmer. Anyway, a lot of talk has been done about the broken revenue sharing formula. Maybe I missed it there, but I really didn't. And talk has been, well, we're going to take 1% of the 5% sales tax and devote that to counties and municipalities. But does that fix? Is that fixing the revenue sharing formula, or are they talking about a one-time stopgap measure?
It's my understanding that this is a continued type of a function where it's one of 5. The other talking pieces that surround it is, what are the details? Is this unrestricted, or is it going to be for restricted type of uses and programs? And then there's also concerns that you have from some of your legislators on, well, you break the formula down like that, and then you're still going to end up with a higher percentage going to more populated areas that are have increased ability to raise tax because they're having development versus more rural areas. So there's kind of those pieces that are still hanging out there as the details on how is the disbursement of those that one of 5 going to impact counties.
Steve Carroll. Yeah.
A similar question. The penny. Let's say it was no strings attached, just simply goes to our ability to pay. Would that take care of things? I don't know. Has anyone run any numbers to see what that would do? It doesn't sound like it would be enough.
I'm running them right now.
Good.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Seep.
that 1 cent out of 5 is equivalent, apparently, to the governor's statement that he wanted 20% of sales tax to go to counties. Are those 2 ideas identical?
I
Mr.
believe
Landgraf?
okay.
Mr. Landgraf?
The intent is, yes, of 20%, and to fix it to an actual quantifiable formula, so it doesn't trickle back off like it has done historically. So it's the
So we don't
20%
know.
of the 1 of 5 pennies that go to local government.
So we don't know how much of what that 20% means for a county like Richland until they determine some formula of apportionment.
Correct. Whether it's going to be equally distributed, or if there's going to be other details on it to try to curb it towards rural and other areas that don't have the same ability to increase levy because of not having essentially more net new construction.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or observations? I think Sean's working on numbers, and he's welcome to interrupt whenever he comes to a conclusion.
If we were
Mhm.
able to keep 1 cent out of the 5, it would amount to more than $1 million.
Yes.
Well, this wouldn't be from like an added like local share. It's my understanding this would still be statewide tax. So it's not, you can't think of it as like just a locally you'll be able to pick up another penny. This is out of the statewide sales tax.
Yeah, be nice if we would just pick up the penny.
I heard tonight that the governor is advocating or proposing that municipalities of over 30,000 be allowed to increase their local tax. I wish he would look to us included in that recommendation. Administrator Langer, can you talk about the 2022 exit interview data summary?
You need a motion on this?
If you'd like to accept the report, by all means.
I would so move to accept the
Well,
report as
thank you,
presented.
Mr. Williams. Do I have a second? Mr. Manning, all those in favor of the ambassador program and our participation in it signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Exit interview data summary.
In your packet, you'll see underneath 06C exit interview summary, prepared by Assistant Dahl. So we solicited out 90 questionnaires in 2022 were sent out. Our return rate, unfortunately, was about a 0.09%, but we did have some data coming back to us that gives us a little bit of indication. The table below captures elements of the survey that goes out. And some of the demographics that are being captured is on the far left there. You'll see less than 1 year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 7, 7 to 15, or 15 or more. Then you'll see what prompted you to leave the county in the middle, different potential reasons on why somebody might be moving on. And then the column on the right captures dissatisfied with. And again, these elements appear right on the form, the exit interview form that's distributed out. And so we're capturing on here, you'll see the different checks are what that each row constitutes one individual, one employee separating, what they filled in as their reasons for leaving, and then they're quantified at the bottom with a percentage to try to give indications. We did have multiple meetings now where we're trying to think of ways to encourage more participation in the exit interviews. Certainly a challenge with small towns on people feeling comfortable on saying things that potentially are unfavorable. As well as too on the concerns on who's all going to know about these documents, as certainly they can be potentially open to public records requests with some limitations. So it is in here. We're hoping to build upon this again to help you folks have statistical data to base policy on and changes. But this is what it looks like for 2022, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Steve, here.
Shouldn't that return rate be 11%?
%? Yeah, our percentage rate here. I'm sorry. 10% return rate, not 0.9%. It should be 9%. Thank you.
Any comments, Cheryl? Got anything strike you?
Well, we sent these out to department heads and got some real good feedback from things that they're gonna work on, or are working on, some dissatisfied things. We've decided in 2023 that we will block the names out and the date they quit to try and make it a little more, unanimous, or I'm sorry, anonymous. There we go. And then we're sending out self-addressed envelopes. We don't want to send the postage and only get, 10% back. So we're just doing the self-addressed envelopes. We're trying to email as much as we can to cut down on mailing.
Good. Sean, you look,
Thanks
like
for,
you have news for us.
no,
or-
thanks for doing it. That's all I want
info.
to say. Thank you for doing it.
Is
Yeah.
that correct then, if I understand that right out? 90 questionnaires were sent out, so we've had 90 people within the county government that have changed either positions or left.
That's just been since April 1st. That's when we started it. We did not do interdepartmental changes, and we did not do county board members or any board members that have.
So these
Clipboards.
were people that actually left the county.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Moving to financial then, agenda item number 7, discussion and possible action on transfer from Fund 63, transportation, to Fund 18, county aging unit.
Mr. Chair, was 6D for, yep, what I was going to talk about?
I believe so.
Do you mind if I talk about shared revenue a little bit?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
It's on the agenda. I don't know why I skipped over it.
Oh, okay.
I thought I called on you and you said, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Barb taught me how to do this before the meeting. So when we were working on the referendum committee work, this shared revenue issue came up. And so in some of my spare time, I started digging. I've been digging through lots of state budget stuff, and I'm just going to run through, like, there's about 20 slides here. I'll run through them as quick as possible. But ask me any questions if you want. But the purpose of shared revenue, I pulled a lot of stuff from the Legislative Fiscal Bureau. It dates back to 1911 when they started the state income tax, and they earmarked portions of it for local governments to compensate them for property tax exemptions that were enacted at the time. So I think they used to tax like all your personal property, and they took that away, replaced it with the income tax, and then they returned those taxes to the place of origin. So if you're a Richland County taxpayer, your income tax, you would get a portion of that back from the state. The Richland County government would, because the residents paid it in. So that's why they call it shared revenues. They were sharing it with everyone. So that was like the history of it. This is the chart that we already had. I think it was in June in our resolution showing Richland County's shared revenues, which is in the red line, and then what it would be if it were adjusted for inflation since '01. So we're about $1,050,000 short now compared to where we would have been in '01. So everyone's talking about this right now. This is a big story, so this is positive for us. Both Tony Kurtz and Howard Markline were on WRCO back in December, and they were talking about this. So I just pulled some quotes of what they said here, because they're talking a lot about the formula. So Tony said that the formula has 4 components, and one of those is net new construction, and it doesn't help smaller rural counties because they're not growing. And then Howard said the formula was set up in '04, and a county like Richland has a difficult time competing with the more prosperous counties as far as population growth and net new construction. So the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, they have one person there whose specialty is shared revenue. So I called her and she sent me to this document to get all the information. So their report, they do a new report every 2 years on shared revenue. It says currently no formula exists for the distribution of county and municipal aid. The total annual distributions remain at the 2012 level of $753 million. So these are the actual dollar amounts. I could find it back to 2005. You know, their numbers are a lot bigger than ours. This is $750 million, right? It's pretty huge. We get 1.2 million of that. But you can see they actually used to be higher in '05. So this is what's happening to us seems to be happening across the state as well. So I just made this real quick while Clint was talking. So the statewide sales tax, I just Googled it. It's about $7 billion a year in revenue. Currently, they give us $750 million, all the counties and municipalities. If we got 20% of the sales tax, it would be $1.4 billion, which would be almost a doubling, which would get us almost to that amount. that we would need if we were gonna keep pace with inflation. Okay, so this was the most detestable part of putting this together for you all. I did not want to research the formula because it's very hard to understand, but I did it. I finally bit the bullet. So there's three components, and I think we should understand this because they keep telling us if we don't change the formula, we're going to get less money. So aidable revenues, these are entitlements given to poorer places based on the amount of local property taxes collected and the per capita property value. So on average, each of us, how much is our property value versus what is it in Dane County or Milwaukee County or wherever. So generally, if you're a poor local government, you get an extra payment because of that with the 2004 formula. Then they do a per capita payment on top of that. So for each person, you get a certain amount of money. This only applied to counties between before 2004, and then they stopped it in 2004, according to this report that's linked down here. And then they have a minimum guarantee. It prevents large decreases or increases in payments. So shared revenue payments must equal at least 95% of the prior year's payment. So that was the formula at that time. They made cuts. They never changed the formula after 04. They made cuts in 04, 2010, and 2012 to the total dollar amount. And you saw that in that chart before. Locally, you can see the 04 drop in our shared revenue, and you can also see the 2012 drop in our shared revenue. I couldn't see it for 2010. It's barely perceptible there. And then here's where the drops are with the statewide dollar amounts. They cut it in 2010, and again, they cut it in 2012. So all the money they're getting from our income tax and sales tax at the state level has increased from 12.5 billion in 05 to almost 20 billion now. But the shared revenues that they give to county and municipalities has stayed flat and gone down.
Very easy to see why we have a $7 billion.
Right? They're keeping our money, yeah. So if you compare the county and municipal aid to they call it general program revenue, that's income tax and sales tax. It used to be 7%. They used to give 7% of what they collected to us. Now they give about 4%. This is in ranked order. This is where the money's going. So number 1 to elementary and secondary school aids, 2 to medical assistance, 3 to jails, 4 to the UW system, 5 to school levy and first dollar tax credits, which I think we see on our property tax bills. And then we're the 6th biggest funding program. So you wonder what else are they spending it on? That's why this is here, just to put it in context. So you can see now our amount varies a little bit every year, but that's because they mix in utility aid. And it took me a little while to understand that. They give county aid, but you can see this is as far back as I could find our payment notices from the Department of Revenue that go to Derek in the clerk's office, but it's 1.172 million. Actually, the number is actually the same every year. They've never changed it. And I couldn't find them further back, but the total amount basically stays the same. Utility aid does have a formula, so that does actually change each year. And that's what Clint's been tracking that's going to be going up soon because of our solar installation. So we're going to get a big bump there. So the purpose of utility aid is to give local governments the services we provide to public utilities. We can't tax them according to state law. But they are taxed by the state. So that's why the state gives us some of that. That's why they've created this aid account for us. It's calculated on a formula unlike county and municipal aid, which is not. So every year they recalculate utility aid. It's always changing. So these are our payments. This is what I could find for the past 11 years on the website. As far as splitting it out, this is the Department of Revenue website. For some reason, we have this $42,000 hit in 2022 for medical transport. And I'm really hoping we can look into that and find out why did we lose 42 grand for medical transport. I Googled it, I couldn't find anything. I emailed the fiscal bureau this afternoon, haven't heard back yet, but we saw a drop because of that. But you can see the utility age changing again. And then every municipality in the county gets this. So it's about 3.8 million. We get 1.2 million, but actually the city of Richland Center gets 1.3 million. They get more than us. They have fewer people. So I don't know what happened in '04 to get them this amount, but they get more than us. And then Viola, Lone Rock, so the villages, and then you can see the towns. Town of Buena Vista, that gets the most, 74 grand a year. Town of Forest gets the least at 20 grand. Sorry, Steve. I don't know why that is, but. So this whole thing about the formula, and they're saying if they don't fix the formula, rural areas are gonna get hurt. So right now, if you add all those up, 3.8 million to all these municipalities plus the county in Richland County. So we all collectively collect $3.8 million. It's about 0.5% of all shared revenue in the state of Wisconsin. But our population only makes up 0.3%. So we're getting extra because we're poorer already. So the formula, if they change the formula, is it going to give even more help to poorer places? I think is kind of part of the question that I'm wondering now. And then sometimes this gets a little mixed up, and I know, Clint, you were talking about this too with what you were with that ambassador program. They use GTA, General Transportation Aids, and sometimes they actually conflate the two when they're talking to us. So the General Transportation Aids, that does have a formula. That's something totally different. That's about 600 grand a year. It goes just to the highway department. So they're talking about if they put more money into GTA, will Richland County get it back? I haven't had time to dig through this yet and figure out that formula. Maybe someone else knows it, or Josh could, maybe Josh knows it better than any of us. But this quote, putting more money into shared revenue isn't the answer. I don't know that we'll end up with more money in Richland County if we do. Well, they don't use a formula anymore. So if they increase at 10% this year, our payment goes from 1.2 million to 1.3 million. It's that simple. So one question I had, I didn't get a chance to ask you, Mr. Langreich, during your part, but what was their concern about where the money was going to go locally? I think you said Tranel and Novak were concerned where, if you get extra money, where are you going to put it? And I'm kind of wondering why they're trying to back us into a corner on that.
From what I gathered in conversations, their concerns were in doing the 20% share, or the 1 of the 5 cents was, is it going to help rural, or is it going to be the same type of apportionment? So you're going to be giving more of that share to places that are having growth and are able to keep up with their projects through the increased formula on property tax levy, versus us who are pressed against the ceiling and need more relief because we can't access that, is, I believe, their position.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so that's all I have.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
The actual formula, revenue sharing formula, which, as you're saying, they don't even use anymore. What is the formula? I mean, they say we need to reform the formula. They're not even using it. But if they did, that could obviously be done such that more rural counties do get a little more help than a straight line apportionment would be. I mean, this says that's the aid formula. We don't see the actual numbers, though. That's what I'm saying. What are the actual percentages? What are the actual calculation? Is that available to us to look at?
Well, when I talked to the Legislative Fiscal Bureau person, she said they don't use a formula anymore. There is no formula.
Not now, but there was.
Right, and these were the 3 things that went into it, and I have not found, actually I might have a document on my laptop that might go into it in some detail. So I could look into that. Maybe I could find that. But it's kind of like takes you back to like pre-calculus in high school. You're just like, what am I doing? It's very complex.
I figured it would be, but it'd be nice to see it.
Okay, Sean, thank you for digging into that.
Yeah.
I don't know any more now than I did before, but thank you. I mean, it's just too complex for us to grasp, I think. We know we're getting less.
Well, I guess the surprise to me was that the amount has been flat since
Yeah.
2012.
Flat.
And so they're kind of acting like if they just change the formula, that that's what they need to do, but don't they just need to put more money into it?
Right.
I mean, fine, redo the formula, but what about just increasing the money? Because how can, they're not keeping up with inflation,
Mm-hmm.
so they're keeping us at 2001 levels. So it's because they're not putting more money into it. They're putting more money in other places.
Steve?
Yeah, that's what worries me a little bit about the penny of the sales tax as their proposed solution. I would rather WCA promote, hey, just keep us even with inflation, you know?
Right. Okay. Discussion and possible action on transfer from Fund 63 to Fund 18.
Mr. Chair, looking today for action, we're requesting approval of transfer of funds from Fund 63 Transportation Program to Fund 18 County Aging Unit. This is for a car replacement fund totaling $46,178.96. Forward the request out of the County Board if necessary for approval. If maybe I'll defer to Director Clements to speak on it more intelligently than myself.
Okay, sorry. So for our transportation program through the ADRC, we receive funds, 8521 funds from the state of Wisconsin. It's a set amount that we receive every year, and the funds that are left over, the state mandates that we put them into a trust fund. We are allowed to keep them, but they have to be transferred into a trust fund. So we're asking that these funds be transferred to the trust fund. Historically, they were done through the audit process, but we found recently that since 2016, that has not been done through the audit process. And the auditors have recommended that we do it this way every year. With whatever funds are left over, we make a transfer through the board process.
Thank you. Something we do every year. Somebody want to make a motion? Mr. Williamson,
I'll second it.
seconded by Mr. Murphy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Number 8, discussion and possible action on transfer from Fund 93 ARPA to Fund 10 General for 23 operations. Mr. Lengren.
Mr. Chair, looking to transfer $524,088.07 from Fund 93 ARPA to Fund 10 General 2023 operation. As per adopted financial plan and the 2023 budget, $524,880.07 in American Rescue Plan Act funds were appropriated to cover general operation expenses in 2023. This transfer moves funds from the segregated ARPA fund to the general fund, and then the expenditures will come through the department budgets. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I know we've discussed this many times, and we certainly discussed it in looking at the budget and the 5-year plan. So we're using ARPA funds to balance our budget. I need a motion. Mr. Manning.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Carroll. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 9, discussion and possible action on transfer from Fund 37 swimming pool operations to Fund 36 swimming pool projects. Mr. Langreck.
Mr. Chair, looking tonight for action to move $900 to be transferred from account 3745004627 partnership with youth to 3645 ending in 4619 class fees in 2022 budget year. And I will defer to Director Gobin to further explain.
Thank you. Tracy Goben, Director of Simons, will be speaking.
So we have the partnership with youth program, the Every Child a Swimmer program. We kind of renamed it a few years ago to make a little bit more sense of what we were looking at doing. But it's a fund that's separate out of our budget where businesses and individuals can donate into this fund to help support so that every child can learn how to swim without a cost coming in the way of a reason why they can't swim. So we had 30 kids take participation in the Every Child a Swimmer program in 2022. So this is the funds to transfer the money that went into the donation program to pay for the swimming lessons, just going into the class fund where if they would have paid cash for it, it would have went into that fund.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions? I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Williamson.
Second.
Mr. Carroll seconds. All those in favor of this motion to transfer funds signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Number 10, discussion and possible action on extension of ARPA grant funds. Mr. Langrick.
Mr. Chair, looking tonight for action to approve the extension of requests for Ithaca School District until June 30th, 2023 to complete their project due to supply chain delays. Ithaca School applied for our ARPA funds for our child care grant. They're looking to build a building that will bring the building into state regulations and license requirements to allow grantee to open the facility for child care. Due to supply chains, as mentioned, they're behind. This would also be for Discovery Play School, which is also looking to extend. It would be comparable to recent action that we had with Copper Top Child Care, Daycare, and extending them out through June 30th. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Williamson.
Mr. Langry, are we better off, what's the deadline to spend the ARPA money? Instead of having to do it again, if the supply chain issues continue, are we better off taking it until the money has, or are we gonna need time to?
ARPA funds have to be appropriated in 2024, spent at a date in 2025, which escapes me off the top of my head. So we have the window there. When we did our initial grant process for these sub-grants that came out from us, we had put a end of 2022 date with it to have it expended out to clear it off and get it into the community. So this will be extending an own internal timeline that we'd set for the grant recipients.
Thank you. All right, you've heard the dilemma.
Mr. Chair, haven't they spent the money in 10A? Like all the money's gone. Is that a different one?
Discovery Play School, is that the one in Rockbridge or?
Discovery is the one ran out of Schmidt Woodland Hills. They just sent a thank you that
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Discovery Play School had published a thank you in the paper funding their expansion. My apologies. So this is for Ithaca School District to take action on extending them. Discovery Play School published a thank you.
Got it. They're not the same. Ithaca and Discovery. Okay.
My apologies for confusing.
Okay, so we're only talking about one expansion here in this Ithaca. I need a motion. Mr. Murphy Lopez, seconded by Williamson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries. Moves us into a section on the agenda entitled Personnel. Number 11, discussion and possible action on reclassification of the combined office GIS technician and assistant zoning administrator / sanitarian.
Chair, looking tonight for approval for reclassification request for the Assistant Zoning Administrator Sanitarian. Send to the County Board for approval. The GIS, the Geographical Information Systems Technician Assistant Zoning Administrator Sanitarian, which was all one title, resigned their position in September. Zoning has not received any applications for qualified candidate to meet this, the GIS and the sanitarian zoning position. In the interim, MSA has been contacted to pick up on the GIS duties with a contract that's been extended multiple times. We're still looking to resolve that. With no resolve on the GIS position flow and the job description for the foreseeable future, we anticipate a contract will continue to be extended. January, the zoning office system technician resigned their position, leaving only the zoning administrator to complete their office tasks. With the GIS position, job flow, and the job descriptions in question at the immediate needs for a sanitarian zoning position, it was decided that it was best this time to split the sanitation zoning and the GIS duties apart, to best find a qualified candidate to meet the positions separately. So the position was sent back off to Carlson Detman, with taking the GIS element out of it and having it strictly on a sanitarian, a county kind of sanitarian type of a position description. We have supplemental documents showing Carlson Detman review, the reclassification request form, the old position description, the new position description, and proposed resolution language in your packets, items number 11A through 11D. I would defer to Director Bindle to talk on further details on it, as well as also be able to tell us on the financial impacts of doing the reclassification in context of also having vacancies, multiple vacancies in his office. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Landrick. Mr. Bindle, do you have comments?
Administrator mentions getting a little swamped. Basically, if I leave, go on vacation, or take a day off, so we did do the job description change and taking the GIS technician part out. The pay grade did go up to pay grades, so I guess less work means more pay.
So will this make it more attractive to advertise then? Is that,
$4 an hour more, yeah,
that's the goal, right?
right. But this is the range that we are, Carlson Detman proposed is pretty common to other surrounding counties, other than Buck.
Some of the significant changes on there too, though, is we're looking for somebody that has accreditation and has certification now, versus allowing them to obtain it after so many months, years, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's kind of the whole idea is to have someone that comes in with all our credentials already, but if they do that, they already probably have a job somewhere else making more money.
Would this pay range be attractive enough to have someone come from another county or a municipal situation?
If they want to move to Richland County, yes. Is it more money depending on the job? I
Now,
guess
wait,
if
do they have to live here to have that job?
it's not in requirements.
No. All right, you've heard the dilemma that this job has been in the paper for a long time. In fact, Mike had an article in the paper regarding this. He was interviewed for an article, I should say. So, what he needs is a little help here, and I'm all for it, but I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Williamson. Seconded by Mr. Murphy Lopez. What we're doing is changing classification and pay grade, actually, of that classification. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Number 12, discussion and possible action on progression of wage schedule for sheriff's administrative assistant, 2-step 8. And I see Sheriff is here, Sheriff Porter. Are you going to handle this? Go ahead.
Staff members. She has entered her 32nd year of employment with the Sheriff's Office, and she is still at a step 4. We've been going back and forth with Carlson Detman for about a year and a half now. and Carlson Detman's latest response. So basically her job description is not that dissimilar from one that's in a higher pay grade. So that was what caused us to go back and forth with Carlson and Detman. We were trying to get the grade changed to a higher grade. And after a few attempts, we finally got the response that the county should address whether or not she's progressed through the pay plan appropriately. So I guess my argument would be that had the pay plan be followed, a person with her years of service probably should be at market value, which would be a step 8. I fully understand most of the county is not above a step 4. So the reason I'm asking for this is we actually budgeted for this before this all fell through. We had budgeted for a grade change. I believe even to a step 5 in the different grade, and then that didn't happen. So we have money in the budget for this. It's already budgeted for. When instead of a grade change, I'm asking for a step increase to step 8.
What kind of dollars are we talking about? Clay?
It would be $1.76 an hour more for her. So going from 20, if I'm looking at the current wage schedule, we'd be going from $20.35 an hour to $22.11 an hour.
Okay, anything else? All right, you've heard the situation. Instead of going for the grade change, we're looking at step increase. Did it make sense the way he described it? If so, I'll take a motion.
I would move her up to step 8.
Seconded, Williamson makes the motion, seconded by Manning. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Mr. Chair, if I could make
Yes.
a comment. It's not
Mr. Langreck, go ahead.
pleasing, but do understand that motion that you take on this tonight is going to affect other folks that are in the same type of a situation that are having maybe not that many years, because 32 is an excessive amount of years. But do fully appreciate we do have many employees that have been here quite a few years, that, again, not at 32 years, but keeping market the same type of argument could be used for those folks as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I think those, we'll consider them as they come along.
Oh, Mr. Chair, this is a little challenging for me because it's nice when Carlson Detman takes a look at things because they've got this like outside view of, how jobs compare to each other, but I'm not quite understanding the argument, Sheriff Porter, for moving her to step 8 because she's worked here a while. I kind of agree with Mr. Langreck. I think a lot of people could make that argument to us, and we just went through the process of the referendum committee so we could give everyone wage increases, and we've got the wage increases built in. She and everyone else got a % wage increase, a pretty big one this year, and I believe last year too. And then we've got a 5% scheduled for next year. And so I'm struggling with, how are we going to handle this when other people come up and want this sort of a thing too? There's got to be some other measures besides just the number of years, because if we just followed number of years, we would be giving a lot of people wage increases right now based on the number of years they've been here.
Sheriff Porter, can you respond?
So I don't disagree. I don't disagree with anybody's concerns on this. I see where you're coming from. I guess what this brings to light is a more complex situation of the fact that we've never followed the wage progression like we were supposed to. And had we have, these people would be closer to step 8 than they are.
I don't think that's true that we haven't followed the wage progression. I mean, we just went through a very long process of giving everyone wage increases, and whether you increase people's steps or you give a % increase, we are giving raises. And I feel like that kind of argument, I don't want to say it's offensive, but it's kind of like after all the work we went through to make all those budget cuts and to decide on tax increases, and then people are saying that we're not taking people, we're not following the wage study. I mean, we just chose a different method of doing it rather than increasing steps. We're increasing by 1%, and we've been giving, and I wish we could give more, but I mean, look at the reason why we can't give more.
Well, I
know,
understand
so
the
it's-
reason why we can't give more, but with step 8 being market value, even if you increase the wage schedule, you give COLA increases to the wage schedule, you're not, the market value is still step 8, even with the COLA increase. So that's what I'm getting at. I'm not saying, I mean, we've chose not to give people step increases. Well, some departments step increases since this started, but we've given COLA increases, which is great, but we're still not at market value. That's my argument.
If we want to get to market value, then we need to redo the whole 5-year financial plan because we got a lot more employees that are going to want that step 8 too.
We're advertising a max pay for employees that we're never going to hit the way we're operating. That's I guess more to it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Carroll.
I guess for me, the concern I have is that for this kind of situation, it would need to have something more unique about it for me. Otherwise, we have set a precedent, and unless there's something more unique about this particular situation that I haven't heard, I've got similar concerns.
So I guess what I'm going to say is I have a 32-year employee who could walk down the hall, start somewhere else, and make more money doing similar tasks, and the person who replaces her could be making the same amount of her as her within a year.
That was gonna be my question. What's it gonna take to replace her?
What's it going to take to
I
replace
mean,
her? A lot of
when you
training.
rehire, where
Yeah.
will that person start?
Where will that person start? They will start at $19.46 an hour. And within a year, they'll be at the $20.35 an hour she's currently making. That's the problem.
You're not rewarding anybody that. I know it's not part of what you guys work so hard on, but your budget will be shot as these people start to retire because you won't be able, you're gonna have to start them if you even want to hire anybody. It's not easy.
Part of my initial criticism of our salary plan when it was first adopted likened it to it was half a plan. We never had, and we never implemented. And of course, we couldn't implement because we didn't have any money. But it was a false plan. It had steps built in, but no way to promote or move people to those steps. And to me,
Care my bit all.
every employee has the right to be able to look at their salary, at the wage and salary schedule, and project what they'll be earning in a year or 2 or 3. Mr. Seat, did you have a comment?
Me?
Yes, you were making sounds.
Oh, I was. I'm sorry. It was not intentional.
Okay. Mr.
Accidental.
Carroll?
Accidental.
I was just wondering if assess how many employees are in a similar situation, maybe not 32 years, but obviously not as many steps they should have to see what would happen if we did do the similar with everyone in that same situation.
Mr. Chair, in March, we're hoping to bring forward a recruitment retention report to you that kind of shows we alluded to it a little bit with our exit interview that has our demographics on people separating and what our average years are of tenure and some other type of employment type of data for you. So I think we'd be able to tease some of those answers out for you out of that report coming to you next month.
So I was wondering,
Mr. Carroll?
could we gather that information before we make a decision on this?
Sure.
I would suggest if we table it and maybe we would have the full committee here I
Mhm.
see Tim was on, I believe. Dave Turk is on, but, if, would that be appropriate, Sheriff Porter, to, we table it till next month? We get the information that Mr. Carroll asked for, I wouldn't mind seeing
I mean,
that
I
as
think
well.
if you're comfortable making a better informed decision that way, then yes, I would say.
So do we have a motion to table?
I also move the table till next month's personnel and finance.
Okay, motion by Williamson, second by Carroll, to table until next month. And having more info. All those in favor of the tabling motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Sheriff Porter. The next thing on our agenda is going into closed session. And we'll do that. I would ask that in addition to any finance members who are on screen, I would ask that all county board members who are up there be allowed to stay, Barb. Okay. That would be Don, Carrie, Tim. Says you're up there too, Sean. You're in two places at once, buddy. You've done it. Uh, why not, we could take corporation counsel first.
Just a minute here.
And then, right, right. Well, motion to go into closed session. Manning. Second by Williamson. Voice vote.
leave, oh yeah, end meeting for all, done.